we've been making the joke about transphobia for at least weeks, if not months. That's been like
transracialism.
We've been joking about that for a long time, and now like here it is. I mean, literally, that's what set me off so bad last night. Is like here was fucking Al Sharpton basically saying don't be transracial phobia, don't have transracial phobia. It's basically what his defense of her was it doesn't matter who she and
he knows like but which side of the bread is buttered, like
but he gets to go on the air and say that like with a straight face, and people do take it seriously. That's the defense, and they feel like they've been shielded now by the TV has said, even if it's Al Sharpton saying it, that it's like basically don't hate on trans. I mean, it's disgusting.
I'm getting slightly triggered by my inability to parody, mock, or otherwise satirize the left, because every time I think I've found something, they actually do it in real life.
Right.
Like, come on, guys. Give me something that's like where I'm making fun of you, and it's like I'm actually making fun of you, not accurately predicting what you're going to do next.
Everything is pose law. Everything is pose law.
The amazing thing is that they are circling the wagons around this woman now.
Yeah.
Right.
Other than, and the comparison you can make is sort of like the feminists have like this small faction of really radical feminists that hate trans people. They hate them because they're like trans women, whatever the fuck, they're called like TERF, trans inclusionary radical feminists. So like they hate the guys that cut off their dick and LARP as women. They hate those guys, and they're like, this is more masculinity, like appropriating female bodies, and not only that, but this issue is now taken front and center in the feminist movement. It's no longer about the oppression of biological females or whatever. So they're all pissed off about it, and I think there's probably some small segment of like to the extent there is a black movement, I don't know to what extent that actually exists. I don't know, or if it's all just run by Jews or whatever, but the small amount of black nationalists, like hardcore, are like, no, she can't pretend to be black. She can't do that. But the overall left is like now starting to formulate this narrative where like it's okay what she did, or you can't judge her, or she did good stuff anyway. You know what I mean? It's really funny. And this woman had other issues. Like her individual case is interesting, but as sort of a case study in leftist psychology, it's very interesting. So she made up all kinds of crazy stories. So her parents are probably, like, her parents are white. She has another white brother, biological brother, and her parents adopted 4 blacks. So obviously they're like hyper signally liberal people, right? Like they're so much signaling their moral superiority, they're actually adopting blacks. And she is now like saying that her parents like put her and her siblings, quote unquote, into a room and like beat them, and they beat them proportionately to how dark skinned they were. Like this is something she's been saying.
What?
Yeah. and then somebody actually did a fairly interesting sort of armchair psychoanalysis of her, where like she's essentially telling the story that the left tells us about slavery, only putting herself in it at every moment. So it's like when she's young, she's like beaten according to the color of her skin. And then she gets older, and she had actually created these phony hate crimes against herself. So like 9 times she got hate mail with like pictures of black people being lynched and all this other shit. But it was like pretty sure that she just sent them herself, because these packages ended up in her P.O. box, but there was no evidence they'd ever gone through the postal system. Like they had no postmark. They were not stamped. Right. So it's like, it's just, you put that in there. Like the police were like, they didn't ever press charges against her for like faking this, but they're just like, this again? Like you put that in there. Like you're not fooling anybody. And then she was making such a stink about it that the news got a hold of it. And that's when that interview with her, where the guy's like, are you African American? She's like, I don't understand the question.
It's like,
it was not on their fucking stand. So it's like she's totally internalized this whole narrative and like retold it through herself. There was an interesting comparison that somebody made to her to another guy about 20 years ago who LARPed as a Polish Jew that supposedly survived the Holocaust. And he wrote a book, and this guy's name was like Benjamin Walensky or something like that. Or that wasn't his real name. His real name was some Goy name. He was actually a Goy LARPing as a Jew Holocaust survivor. And he wrote this book about like the most outlandish, barbaric shit that the Nazis, torturous things that the Nazis were doing to people. And everybody loved it. Everybody ate it up. The intellectuals ate it up. The ADL went to bat for this guy. Like, of course, everybody, the Holocaust Museum went to bat for this guy. Everybody was loving it.
Well, come on.
Of course, right? And some people were like, wait a second, this is bullshit. He's literally talking about, like, interestingly enough, he told stories about Nazi guards taking Jewish babies and mutilating their genitals. So that's kind of weird, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, but it ended up the guy was totally full of shit. It was all false. He made it all up. But even so, there were other people that were like, I was in the concentration camps with him, and I remember. I remember him. We went through these things together. So it's like they have this way of making this stuff real in their own mind. I don't know. Regardless of what you do or don't believe about the Holocaust, there have been a number of proven cases of people and proven that even came out in the mainstream. They're just completely making shit up. And they're making shit up. And the interesting thing to me about this is that the left doesn't understand, or they pretend not to understand. They pretend not to understand why would you want to do that? Because it's like they don't understand that you get power, social approval from doing things like that. Like and it's black people in particular don't get Dolezal because they're like, why would anybody want to pretend to be black, right? It sucks being black.
Right.
It fucking sucks. You're stupid. And you kind of suck.
But it can be great to be a token, that's why.
But they don't get that, like, to a white liberal, being black is like the ultimate moral trump card against all other white people.
Not just being black, but being a black warrior for social justice and black rights. I mean, in a way, it's not that different from, I mean, when we were kids, I'm sure you played some version of Army Man or whatever, where you essentially dressed up and pretended to be what you thought was heroic. When I was a kid, I loved to play Army. I loved to play, I like to get my dad's old military gear and pretend I was a soldier, because to me, soldiers were heroes. That's what they're doing here. She is the most heroic character in all of history to a liberal is Martin Luther King Jr. So that's what she's essentially doing. She's dressing up and kind of LARPing and pretending to be, pretending but not pretending to be a black warrior for social change, because there's no higher moral figure in the white pantheon. Right.
Yeah. And it's funny how much white liberals, I feel like there's probably a lot of like white liberal cat ladies who were hit kind of close to home by this, because they probably thought, I would love to be that person, but the very fact they were white, they were actually didn't have whatever mental issues he had, so they couldn't go through with it. But they probably in their own mind imagined themselves as, imagine if I was black, then I would really have the moral status to like shake my finger at all of these at all these evil racist whiteys and all stuff like that. So and she lived it out. And so I know that there's cat ladies out there that saw this and were like in weird, like both envious and also embarrassed, because they know that they fantasized about it too.